hosted by IQAC Sri Shankara College, Kaladi. Today we have with us Professor Edamana Prasad for the session on active cooperative learning. Sir, on behalf of all the participants, I extend to you a most cordial welcome. Sir.
Good morning. Thank you for the introduction and welcome back to the FDP sessions. Hope all of you are enjoying the sessions so far.
Yes.
So today what we have planned is for the next 90 minutes. We have been talking about designing outcomes and efficiency and efficacy of the problems for the teaching learning process and the reflection. So all these things are preparation for a teacher to go to the classroom. Now in the classroom, so when you are teaching, whether it is offline or online, doesn't matter. What kind of teaching strategies can we adopt? That is what we are discussing today. When we say active and cooperative learning, it is just one common name for different strategies that teachers can adopt to enhance the effectiveness. So I'm sure that Professor Kalmakar must have discussed the term what effectiveness means, effectiveness and efficiency. So the methodology is basically for increasing the effectiveness as a teacher. These methodologies that we are going to discuss today are not entirely from my personal experience. These are all from research-based studies. So there are two ways that normally faculty members, especially newly joined faculty members, take advice from other members. Either from the personal experience, they say that this is what happened when I teach. And we value that personal experience. But the only problem with going with the personal experience is that it may not work in your case. It is that person's personal experience. If you try to emulate all the parameters, what happened in this case to your case, then yes, probably it will work. But otherwise, personal experience may or may not work for other person. That's the reason why it's important for higher education faculty to learn what are the research-based teaching methods. Because when we say research-based instructional strategy, it means people have done all the parameters into account and then they did some study and conclusions are based on not just one person's personal experience. Now I'm going to share the slides now. Okay, I hope you can see the slides.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, so the title is Effective Teaching Strategies. This is very important for OBE because as I mentioned in the beginning, if we don't incorporate these strategies into the teaching, other things remain on paper. The outcomes, the design, assessment plan design, everything will be on paper, but the translation of those ideas happens when you incorporate teaching strategies appropriate to those outcomes. So hence it is important. This is the expected results from this session. You will be able to design course instructional plans applying RBIS. RBIS means research-based instructional strategies. Design course instructional plan means I'll be requesting you to do some small design work about how do you plan to teach using RBIS. So as we proceed, you will be doing some design jobs. That is the idea. These slides summarizes several RBIS, several methods of teaching which are research based. Obviously, we will not get time for discussing all of them. Some of them we will discuss. But if you are interested, anyway, these slides will come to you so that you can go to online and then all these things are available online, what it means. So there are commonality between all the RBIS. Certain things are very common, but there are distinct features that make them unique also. So one thing probably you can just glance at it and then see that lecture is not a method in this. You don't see that word lecture as a instructional strategy in RBIS, because not because they have not studied it. They have studied how lecture based classes are effective or not, but what they found is that especially to assimilate complex thought processes, what they find is that lecture is not a good strategy. So we don't have to abandon lecture, but we need to realize that suppose there is 50 minutes for a class and the teacher consumes 50 minutes for lecturing, effectiveness of learning will be less. Okay. Before we go to the methods, I think we'll spend a few minutes on this question, why it is important, why research-based instructional strategies. Recently, there was a meta study. I hope you know what is a meta study means. Study means a research study, represent here a research article. There are more than a couple of hundred research studies on different RBIS. Somebody studied this couple of hundred papers. That is called a meta study. So this meta study shown that there is no further need for trial experiments on RBIS, as the existing evidence itself is abundant enough to support its efficacy. This was published in Proceedings of National Science Academy, 2014. You can see the reference below, which means, what does it mean is, all those couple of hundred research papers on RBIS were trial experiments. There will be a set of learners, they'll be using some strategy, and then they were establishing that this strategy is better than the other strategy. So such experiments are abundantly available. So this meta study say that don't do no trial experiment, not needed. You can directly take these methods to classroom. It is proven beyond doubt. It is like when you can find a new drug or vaccine, they do a lot of trial experiments. And once they convince that these are all successful, then they can take it to human. Exactly like that, this meta study say that RBS has been done enough trial experiments across the world. It is not anything connected with the culture, heritage, geography. No, this has been done everywhere. And the results are all pointing out that these are better than the conventional teaching method, which is lecture. So they say that stop this trial experiment, take into classroom. RBIS suggests that there should be sufficient opportunity for learning verification on the cognitive levels which are targeted. So on the left hand side, you see the Bloom's taxonomy. When you go to the classroom, when you teach the course, you are targeting at different portions of the syllabus, you are targeting different levels. But what RBIS, these strategies are designed in such a way that when you are targeting a level, it's more important to verify whether the learner is reaching that level than you are providing information on that level. So there are two things. When we say normally, when we say teaching, it is mainly focusing on what teacher does. But surprisingly in RBS, that part is getting less attention. More attention is for learning verification. That is why we say active learning should be a strategy, general strategy for all RBIS. Active learning means student actively learning in your classroom. You may be providing information, but that can be in chunks and pieces, but more focus is on what students are doing with this information. So the class design will be slightly different. This sentence, I like it because this summarizes the entire research on active learning. The primary takeaway from research on active learning is that student learning success depends much less on what teachers do than what teachers ask their students to do. So there is an illusion for many of us that when we do things in a very proper way, that enhances students' learning. But research indicates slightly different opinion. Whatever you do is important. Nobody is objecting that. But if you want really effective way of learning, you need to put more focus on what your students are doing as a result of your teaching. That's why the whole OBE concept is coming. What you are seeing in the slide is on the left side when you see FCI. This is a huge study with the 6,500 students in high school, college, university. These students were taught, FCI is a basic physics course, force concept inventories. It's a basic physics course. This was taught to 6,500 plus students, both traditional way, that means lecture based, and interactive engagement way. So you can see in the inside the graph, there are two kinds of boxes. One is filled one is hollow. And you see the graph, filled one are lying low, hollow one are lying above. The graph, what is plotting on Y and X axis? Y axis is percentage of gain. So what they do is, they do a pre-test, they do a post-test, take the difference. That they call as gain in learning. So when students enroll for a course, first you do a pre-test. Pre-test is not to check their prior information. This pre-test contains questions on the subject that you are going to teach. So they may, unlikely that they may score less. Do the same kind of test after the semester is over and take the difference. That difference is what actually they gain from that course. So they call it gain, and there's a way to calculate percentage of gain, percentage of average gain, etc. That is what is plotted on the y-axis. X-axis is percentage that the student is getting in pre-test. So naturally, if the slope is high, more gain. So they are comparing the slope of these graphs between traditional classes and interactive classes. Look at the values given at the below. Traditional average gain is 0.23, whereas interactive average gain, interactive classes average gain is 0.48. It translates that there is doubling of gaining or doubling of learning. So if somebody asks you, is there any quantitative way of understanding how the effectiveness of RBIS, research-based instructional strategies, using? This is the best study so far. When I say best, it means it is such a vast number of students. So statistical data makes more sense if the sample size is high. Here it is clearly saying that you can actually double the learning that is happening in a class if you are using interactive engagement tools. What you see on the right side is another study done for an electrical engineering course. And what is more, data is less, but what is more important is look at the values that is given, traditional and interactive. You see the doubling there also. Even though the standard deviations are slightly different, you see the doubling thing. And these are only two studies I picked up, but there are many studies like this. So that is why they say it's unequivocally proven that these methods work. So that's why we are focusing on RBIS. What you see on this slide is there are the worst 10 ways you can teach. So it will be interesting to see what are those 10 worst methods of teaching. When you ask a question in the class, immediately look for volunteers. Well, all of us do that, right? But what people say, those who are studying this, they say that it's a bad way. Why it is bad way? Because when you are looking for volunteers every time, you will eventually see that the volunteers are fixed in the class. The same person will again raise the hand. That doesn't mean that he is intelligent or she is intelligent. That just means that they are more prepared to answer. So then what happens is that the efficiency or the effectiveness will be focused only on that small sector. So it's always better, you can encourage them, but don't always look for volunteers. You ask questions, that's very important, but take a random sample. Second worst method, call on students cold. This means you ask a question and demand a response immediately without allowing sufficient time for processing your question, because answer is there in your mind. So you don't realize that other person need a little bit more time, especially when everybody is standing at different point in the learning curve. So that fact normally teachers forget, and then they demand immediate answer. That's also a bad practice. Turn classes into PowerPoint shows. 50 minutes, if you go with the 78 slides, you don't get much sufficient time for, the learners will not get sufficient time. It will become a slide show. That's bad practice. We are not saying slides are bad, slide show is bad. Fail to provide variety in teaching. Why RVIS comes means, as I show in that first slide, there are several ways of teaching. So if you're not aware, you become like a repetition. You'll be doing the same thing. That is bad. Have students work in groups with no individual accountability. You may ask them to do a group work, online or offline, but then you stop monitoring what they do individually. Bad practice, because group work can always happen by one or two extra smart fellows in the group. So then you are not becoming effective. Fail to demonstrate relevance. Whenever we teach a subject to adults, it is important that relevance is established first, because the adult brain asks this question, why am I learning this? It doesn't happen for kids in the primary level of education. Many parents must have experienced this when you have kids in LKG, first standard, when they do their homework, and especially when you see that they are doing in the wrong way and you try to correct it, what answer they will give to you? Don't worry, my teacher told me to do this way. So that means their brain is, so it's in the developing stage. Doesn't mean that adult brain is already developed. Brain, there's a scope for developing all the time throughout the life. But compare relatively, the education when they are in the primary level, they don't ask this question, why am I doing this? They tend to follow instructions as such. But when it comes to adolescent and adult age, they always ask this question, why am I learning this? So especially when you teach a subject, it's important that you should answer the question why first before you go to the topic. Give tests that are too long. What research shows that frequent short tests are much more effective than a test which comes not very frequent but very lengthy. So you may avoid this testing after several weeks of your class. We normally call it quiz 1 or some names will be there, but that comes several weeks after. That is not very effective. Do tests if possible in the same class or couple of class. Now it depends upon your convenience and your situation, but make it very frequent. Get stuck in a rut. That means you become highly repetitive. If you are teaching a course several times, you cannot do nothing innovative on that. So change the course once in a while. Teach without clear learning objectives or learning outcomes. That means you don't know where we are going, but still we are going. So that doesn't make very effective teaching. Last but not least, disrespect students. One of the worst teaching mistake is you treat them like subhuman beings. They are complete human beings. Give the respect, then you will see that they also tend respect back. So why I said this in the beginning is one way of to tell that you eliminate all these practices. That itself will give you the base for going to RBIS? Well, especially this pandemic time, the question is, will online teaching, because it's almost sure that for the next 1 year, we are going to be online teaching. Will it be effective or not? This question comes from the illusion that offline teaching is very effective. When you do offline or online, effectiveness in percentage, it varies. What we are trying is, if you are using RBIS, that percentage can be improved. That is only guarantee that we can give. We are now going to the first RBIS. As you can see in the slide, it is called flipped classroom teaching. How we can do it online. Let us see what is the instructional strategy by flipped class. Many of you may be knowing it, but just for common, everybody is on the same page, I am telling this. You can see in the slide two things, traditional and flipped. Traditional is, before coming to the class, students are not supposed to do anything. They can simply come to the class and listen to you. But in flipped approach, they have to do some work before they come to the class, online class. So before they come to the online class, they are supposed to watch a video. They're supposed to read a book or an article, whatever you prescribe to them. They are coming to the class with readiness to learn. Their background things are given. In traditional approach, during first class, teacher introduces the topic. But in flipped class, students start working on exercise to practice their expected learning. And teacher is only providing feedback, no lecture. So you can design a flipped online class where no lecture is there, because lecture is already given. You will be asking them to do some problem and provide feedback on that. After the class, students can do homework in traditional. Same can be done in flip. Now I want you, if you understand this particular way of teaching, now I want you to write down a lecture topic and design a flipped classroom activity. So I will go back, I will read the question again. I want you to generate ideas for conducting a flipped class on a topic of your choice. Anything from your syllabus. But now think, how are you planning to conduct a flipped class on that particular topic? Essentially, generate cognitive activities that you can ask in the flipped class. So I will stop sharing now. And we will go to the chat box. Moderators can help me in getting those. It will take 1 or 2 minutes.
Yes.
So
Yes, sir.
Good morning,
Yes.
sir.
Yeah.
Right now, there's no one who's typed.
Yeah. They're thinking about